So, Representative Khanna, first of all, can you give us an update on TikTok? And has Trump failed to save TikTok because his tariffs are clearly making it hard to make a deal with China?
Well, first of all, I was one of the very few people who was opposed to the TikTok ban and was speaking out a year ago about how the legislation was terrible. We had over 1 million people sign a petition to keep TikTok open, and I appreciate all of the advocacy. It's taking away people's free speech. I do think that Trump is making it tougher just rhetorically in making the keeping the app open, but it's some place where I'm going to work with whoever I can to keep this app open. I don't want 175 million Americans losing their speech.
Right now, the First Amendment is under attack, and we're seeing students on college campuses get kidnapped, abducted. We're seeing people get, deported to prisons in other countries for speaking out against, the war in Gaza or speaking out against the Trump administration. What are you seeing with this right now, and what kind of warning would you want to send to the American people?
Well, first of all, the First Amendment applies to every person in America. J.D. Vance and others are arguing that it only applies to citizens, that if you're a green card holder or you're here on a visa, you don't have First Amendment rights. That's just a blatant violation of the Constitution. So we need to stand up for students who are speaking out and being deported. In J.D. Vance's America, I gave this speech a week ago at Yale Law School, where both of us had J.D. Vance and I had gone, and I said he's a stain. His being affiliated with Yale Law School is a stain on every Yale graduate, because in J.D. Vance's America, you can get a knock on your door and be deported to a dictatorship without due process if you're an immigrant. It's a scary, scary situation. We need to stand up, speak out for basic rights.
So right now, the Trump administration, they seem to be convincing the Democratic Party that maybe we need to move more towards the moderate, center, because Trump is so, right wing, so we can't run progressives anymore. What do you think we should actually do to win elections again? I believe we should be going further in the progressive direction and speak to working class issues. What are your thoughts? What do you think Democrats need to do?
Of course, we need to be progressive. We have a disconnect with the working and middle class in this country. We need to be clearly against super PACs. Summer Lee and I introduced legislation to abolish super PACs, so people shouldn't be able to give more money to super PACs than they can give to candidates. We need to be for Medicare for all. We need to be for $10 a day child care. That's my bill, where we can pay child care workers $20. We need to be for taxing billionaires more. We need to be for a living wage in this country, for giving workers stock ownership so that they can build wealth and have some ownership. The history of this country is when we have darkness, what emerges is a progressive movement. After Robert Barron era, we had the progressive era. After Herbert Hoover, we had FDR. After George W. Bush, we had Obama. After Donald Trump, we're going to have a new progressive movement.
Absolutely. Right now, I think a lot of people are feeling betrayed by Donald Trump's, fake promises about delivering on the economy.
Yeah.
How can we make an economy that works for not just Elon Musk, not just Trump, but the entire country? How can we build that, and how can we run on that as Democrats?
We need to be for a Marshall Plan for America. I call it economic patriotism. You want to build new steel plants, you want to build new aluminum plants, you want to build new technology, new jobs in these communities. We need a national investment bank. We need federal financing. We need to have workforce development. We need to be funding the universities there. We need to make sure that there's actually financing to build new industry. We need a White House Economic Development Council to do that. And while we have an economic renewal strategy for America, we need at the same time to make sure that everyone has health care with Medicare for all, child care, free public college and vocational education and preschool. These are the basic investments in this country.
And I want you to, give a shout out to the recent legislation that you introduced. So you want to ban insider trading, I believe. You want to possibly implement term limits to Congress. And can you explain?
I've got a 5-point plan of political reform. Members of Congress should never become lobbyists. Members of Congress shouldn't be able to take PAC money or lobbyist money. We need to ban super PACs. We need to ban members from stock trading and we put the money in a diversified trust. We need to make sure that there are term limits around here for members of Congress. It's common sense stuff. the Democrats should run on an anti-corruption agenda.
Last question. I'll try to end on a hopeful note here. What is giving you, optimism, maybe some cautious optimism about the midterm elections and maybe even a presidential election where we can try to turn this country around dramatically?
Wherever I'm going in red districts, deep red districts, 1,000 people are turning out for town halls, and I stay there to answer every last question. I've done 5 of these in Republican districts in rural California, in Bakersfield, Norco, in New Jersey, in rural Nebraska, and they are upset. They're upset that Trump is trampling over the Constitution. They're upset that Medicaid's been cut. Education, public education has been gutted, that he's handing out tax breaks to billionaires. The citizenry, Americans are awakened, and that's what gives me hope. That movement is going to take back this country.